Before we get started with this episode, we both have injury close call reports to do. Liam, why don't you go first?
Yes, well, so this year I bumped up my mileage very quickly. Back in the day, in my heyday of running, which was now about 5 years ago, when I did my best running, I was at 100 kilometers a week, but I have not done that for a long time. So I decided this January 1st to just go back to it, and I thought maybe I kind of upped my mileage too quickly, and on Saturday I started to have some foot pain while I was running on one side. And after a few kilometers, I felt it. I had to walk back. Even walking was uncomfortable. After sleeping, I felt fine. Went for a run the next day, started again. Um, but my workouts in my house with no shoes were fine. So I looked at my shoe, I inspected it, and the insole had completely worn out. Turns out running at, I guess, a couple thousand kilometers on the same pairs of shoes does in fact eventually wear your shoes out. So anyways, I found a problem and I went to Daiso before a group run and bought new insoles for 1,000 Korean won, about 1.03 Canadian dollars. I don't know if that's the real exact conversion rate. But they don't really have my size in Korea, so it was too small, and my toes went out on either side of the insoles and didn't really help. So in my group run, it was an out and back at night in the Han River with some snow. And my group went ahead. I said, I'll just find you on the way back. Don't wait for me. And then I decided to just take my shoes off and walk a bit, but it felt great. So I kept running. And I caught up to them with no shoes. And they were kind of like, what are you doing? I thought you were injured. And I guess I'm not. So I thought it might be a stress fracture or something like that. But thankfully, only my shoes have passed away. I am still fine. So I did not get injured, but I almost did, according to my misunderstanding.
So it wasn't a foot injury, it was a shoe injury.
Yes, yes, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. My foot is fine. The insole is not. I guess the shoe is fine. It's an insole injury, a deep
But
tissue
they're
injury
five
of the
fingers
shoe.
shoes, so wouldn't you need special insoles for those?
These ones are not 5 fingers. They're
Oh,
barefoot
okay.
style, but this was a different company.
Right. Okay. I think I know the ones you're talking about. I had some ankle pain in my right ankle. It was a little bit swollen. And last year was actually pretty light running week for me. I've been doing about 60 plus a week, which is a lot for me. I don't know how you do 100. Do you do other workouts in between, or is it just lots of running?
Um, I trying to get back into it. I haven't been very consistent. I do a little bit of jumping, like jumping on the spot in my house,
Yeah.
kind of like skipping with no skipping rope, but that's
Mm,
just a
it's
little
much
thing.
easier.
Yes.
Mm. So I've been doing personal trainer sessions for the past 2 weeks. And that's like an hour, and then I'm trying to fit running in on top of that. So it's a lot, even to get to like 50K a week. I don't know how you do it.
So,
Anyway, I only did a single 23-kilometer run last week, and the day after, my right ankle was kind of swollen. And when I walked, there was kind of like a clicking sound at my Achilles heel. So of course, I stayed off it for a few days, and it started to feel better. And then I went for a lunch run at work, 10K. It was a little bit sore first, and then once I warmed up, it was fine. And then the afternoon, a few hours later, and then the next day, it was sore again. So I decided to go to a traditional Chinese hospital because that's what you do when you
oh
have ankle
yeah.
pain. And they happen to have an athlete recovery center inside the hospital. There's this place on the third floor, and they gave me a consultation and had me do like a few actions, like move one foot forward, like the archer stance, go into the archer stance in one motion, and then on the other foot, and then stand on one foot, stand on the other foot, and then try it with my eyes closed. A bunch of random stuff like that. And what he ended up doing was he did a kind of treatment. And there's no way to explain it. There's no way to say it in English. I have to explain it. It was called Jinmo Dao. It's a set of metal tools that the doctor uses. And in this case, it was like a long metal bar that he would hold with both hands and torture me by grinding it up my calf on
Oh,
my right
yes.
leg, my hamstring, I believe it's called. Yeah, like the lower part of your leg, because the muscle there was really tight, and it's clearly tighter than my left leg because my left leg wasn't sore, but whenever he touched my right leg, it was really sore. So the muscle there had been tight for years, right? It had been building up for years. So
Mhm.
he did this thing. It felt like it went on for half an hour. It's probably only like 10 minutes, but I was covered in sweat and like rolling around, just wanting to be over. But after he did it, the swelling went down, and also it doesn't hurt when I touch that spot on my ankle anymore.
Oh,
So he's definitely onto something. And then the past couple days when running, it's still a little bit sore, but I feel like my leg in general is more relaxed, and my foot is able to get a better full grip on the ground. So the
mhm.
tightness in my leg was holding me back from that, and that was what was imbalancing my stride, and that's what led to the swelling. So a very roundabout explanation and treatment, but it worked, and I'm going back again. It'll take a few sessions, and then we'll go from there. Maybe do the other one. Okay, but let's get into our list. So today we're talking about our bucket list of places that we want to run in or do races in. Go.
Great. So first on my list is a big one to start with. It is the Mount Fuji 100 mile. I've never
Hmm.
done a 100-mile race, never been to Japan, never been to Mount Fuji. So why not do it all at
I don't know what a
once?
mile is.
Yeah, something. Isn't that like that thing? I don't know.
Like a
But yes,
kilometer
so yeah,
ish.
100 miles around a mountain. The reason I chose this one specifically is maybe 6 or 7 years ago, a friend of mine did it and posted a video of a man in like an animal, kind of creepy, terrifying animal mask in the middle of the night on a mountain
Hmm.
playing a recorder. That was how he was cheering on the runners. And there was fog on the mountain, and just this almost looked like a demon just playing the recorder at night. And I thought, oh, that's what it is to be a runner. So I've wanted to go there ever since.
Has nothing to do with running.
Yes, that's the first on my list.
Okay, and we're doing a top 10, by the way.
Right. Yes.
In probably no real particular order. At least mine
Not
aren't
really.
in super
Yeah.
in chronological order or anything. And mine is more like a list of places that I plan to run eventually, and not really a bucket list. Like they're all pretty achievable. And honestly, they're mostly places that I just want to visit, and I'm using running as an excuse for that. Uh, except for the first one that I'm going to talk about. It's the only one on my list that I actually don't plan on visiting. I
Oh.
just like to think about doing the Pyongyang Marathon in North Korea. So they do have a marathon there, and you can do it. You have to take a certain flight which leaves from Beijing, which is convenient for me. And you have to stay at a certain hotel, and you have to stick with the group the whole time. And they have strict regulations on taking photos and stuff like that. But if you follow the rules, then it's just a really weird marathon. The city itself is kind of like a not a super busy city. It's a different world. And every time I think about it, I think, oh, yeah, it'd be cool. And then the more I think about it, the more I'm like, probably it'll be fine, but you never know. And then if something does happen, like if my phone gets confiscated or if I get jailed for no reason or worse, maybe jailed because my phone is a Samsung phone. I don't know. The way they think is so weird there that common sense just gets the better of me, and I decide against it. But every once in a while, when I see it on the list, I'm like, that would be cool. Nah, it wouldn't. But it
Fair
would.
enough.
But it wouldn't. Yeah, that's my first one,
Yeah,
Pyongyang.
I kind of do agree with that. And it's good that these are in no particular order, because I can
Mm.
modify my list to say that another one on my list was the exact same marathon.
Okay.
It's, and yes, that's a race I've always been curious about. I'm also a bit hesitant because, as I mentioned
Mm.
before, I live in South Korea
Yeah.
and I can also speak Korean. So that does kind of make me look a bit suspicious.
Yeah.
For maybe I might just be kind of a bit odd. Oh, I am a bit odd. And if you see me run, especially in North Korea, I don't think there's ever been a purple dinosaur there. So that would be a nice accomplishment. But I thought, well, what they might think I'm like trying to spy because I can speak Korean. And then someone said, well, you should pretend that you can't speak Korean. I'm like, but what if I accidentally understand them and they find out that's so much worse? So there's a lot of thoughts going on. But one day it would be nice if things settle down a bit. I would also like to participate in the Pyongyang Marathon.
At least I live in China, which is an ally of North Korea,
Mm.
and speak Mandarin, so I think I'd be less of a risk than you.
I do agree.
But yeah, just not a good idea. My second one is New Zealand. Anywhere in New Zealand, just because it looks awesome, and scenic runs are something that I really enjoy, and the scenery in New Zealand is amazing. And I really hope that they have one where you finish at the top of a volcano.
Oh, oh,
and
I think I know where this is going.
and they give you a ring, and then instead of
Yes, okay.
a finisher medal, it's a finisher ring that you throw into the volcano, and then you watch it go up
I
in
think that would
flames.
be good. Yeah,
Yeah.
you could.
If they don't have that, then I'll invent it. They
And
do
a
have
very important
volcanoes
question. Right?
in New Zealand, right?
I think they
Yeah,
do. Yeah. If
at
you
least
were to
one.
participate, at least one, a very famous one, uh, it takes at least, well, the extended edition would take probably more than 10 hours to get there, but at least 9 hours to get
Mm,
there. And
yes.
yes, that's an important question I have about that is do you have to participate with no shoes?
And wear fake hair on the top of your feet. I think so.
Yes, or real
But
hair.
you do get second breakfast.
Ah, then that's all you need.
All right, that's my
That's good.
number nine. Anywhere in New Zealand.
Great, great. Listen, my next one is also kind of an anywhere in. I chose one specific race because it just happened about a week or two ago. The race I chose was Hong Kong 100. So last summer I was in Hong Kong for 3 days and I participated in a 5 and 10K, which was fun, but of course I'd always like to experience more. And a couple weeks ago, my friend participated in the Hong Kong 100 kilometers, not 100 miles, and she posted some videos. And there's, of course, mountains, it's a trail run, but there's also just a beautiful beach they're running on, and just the atmosphere was really good. It's not with, I guess, before we talked about like UTMB and big trail run, like international organizations. As far as I know, it's not part of any of those. It's just a great local run hosted in Hong Kong, and it's a great view and great time overall. So that's on my list.
And it's the only race where you do a lap around Hong Kong, take a ferry to Kowloon, and then keep running for the other 80 kilometers. Something like that, right?
Yeah. Something like that. We could run while on the ferry. I think we could do ferry laps.
Yeah, you have to do laps around the ferry, which is about 7 minutes. They
Yeah.
have treadmills on the ferry, and you power the ferry to go across.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Okay, my next one is Gold Coast, Australia, or just anywhere in Australia, really. Gold Coast sounds nice and it probably is nice. But Australia is one country that has eluded me for a while. I spent a few months there over the past couple years, and I had registered for a half marathon, but ended up not being able to go. And then I was going to do a full marathon that was right after a translators conference, but the trip for the conference ended up just being too expensive for me to be able to handle. And it just didn't make sense, right? Like I go all that way, spend all that money just for like a 25-minute talk. And then there was a marathon the day after in the same city, on the outskirts of the same city, which I really wanted to do. And that was one incentive for doing the translators conference. But I didn't get to do it. And I'll get there eventually. Australia is awesome.
Yeah, and that's a great follow-up to New Zealand if you're in the area. Why not do both? I guess one
Right.
reason is they might not be back to back, but yes, if they are. And for me, my next one is a UTMB race. It's I think the season finale, some people call it. It's a 100-mile trail race in Chiang Mai. I've also never been to Thailand.
Mm.
Once again, also never done 100 miles yet. But many people I know go there from many countries, and it's just for anyone who's a runner in Asia and into trail running, it's a great way for them to wrap up the year. So it's a very popular run for that. And I've seen some videos, people run through cities and get to meet some local people while running and just have some great views and enjoy the country. So I'd like to check it out. It also, at least this past year, it lined up with a 1 week difference of, I forgot which city. There's another road full marathon in another city in Thailand. So I would like to potentially do both if I'm in the area. But yeah,
I have
that's my next
done
one.
one of the marathons held in Chiang
Oh,
Mai, and it is a really cool city and definitely worth visiting.
okay. Good to know.
My number seven is also a very vague place, Mexico. I really like to do
Oh,
a marathon in Mexico, even though I've lived in Vancouver for probably 20 years, and it's so easy to get from Vancouver to Mexico. I've just never been there at all. So I think that would be a really good way to visit it. And I'm more interested in like the really, really old school Mexico, like Incan culture. So way out in the boonies, the more in the boonies, the better. But it is also interesting that Mexico City is at a really high elevation. But yeah, if there are like temples and jungle and stuff like that, then that's more up my alley. There you go. Anywhere in Mexico.
but yeah, I think Mexico would be great. It would be a run that's muy divertido. I remember my vocabulary correctly,
It's what?
right? It'll be muy divertido,
Oh,
I believe, is very fun.
pretty interesting.
It's been
Yeah.
a while. I've also, even though I'm from Canada, I've also never been to Mexico, so I
Mm.
completely understand and agree with that statement. Yes. And my next one is one I would not have to travel much for, and it's kind of a combination. So it's something I like to call, as of about 2 hours ago, the Korean Ultra Trail Triple Whammy. And for the past few
Mm.
years, three of the major 100K triple, no, 100K ultra marathons have been back to back to back. So second week of October, there's one in Jeju, which I participated in. 1 week later in Seoul, there's 100K, and then another week later in the southern area, an area called Uju, they call it Nine Peaks. Is the last run, and that one's actually 121 kilometers. But I have met a couple of runners who've done all three back to back to back, and I think that's very impressive. And I would one day like to do the Korean Ultra Trail triple whammy.
And live to tell the story.
Or, yes, or the Katatua, as I will call
Mm.
it.
Bring lots of shoes.
Yes.
The next ones on my list are gonna seem pretty lazy. Okay, Cairo, because pyramids, and I've never been to Africa either, so I think that would be a good first stop. And rather than just go and be a tourist, I can seem cooler and view the city in running mode. Uh, and I've also heard that Cairo is actually pretty affordable. Like they have Airbnb there, and it's not as expensive as I thought. Cairo.
Yeah, that's good. I heard Brendan Fraser might participate.
Yeah, if I'm with him, then we might be running from something.
Classic emo tech, but it'll help you run faster. Great. My next one is the last one that I actually know someone who's participated in. So the rest of
Mm.
my list will be more kind of, oh, that would be nice one day, maybe in the future, far away. But this next one is another one in Korea. It's called the Cross Korea 622 kilometers. Is one way that it was translated in English. It's from the southernmost point of South Korea to the northernmost point. And you just go not straight up. There's some turns left and right along the way. But yeah, it's just for
I think it'll take
days. You're just
longer than.
going. It's more like, yes, you have to say it like that. But yes, I've met some people who participated. This is very memorable for me because one of them, I know him, I think at the time he was in his late 60s and he's diabetic. So he runs with chocolates in his pocket and does ultra marathons. When he was 70 years old, he did 102 full marathons in 1 year. Amazing human being. But the reason the diabetes comes into play is at this race, he went across the entire country, ran 621.8 kilometers, and then just fell. His blood sugar went way down. He just needed another chocolate because he needs to have a lot more candies and chocolates while he's running.
Chocolate.
And exactly like that, he just fell right in front of the finish line. And because of regulations, if someone comes and pulls him across, disqualified.
Right,
And
right, right.
can we just like throw him a chocolate? Look, he just ran out of his last choco pie, and everyone was watching like, oh no, oh no. And unfortunately, he had to DNF like 200 meters, right, like he could see the finish line and had to
Yeah, yeah,
DNF.
yeah.
So he kind of became more famous than the people who won the race because of that.
Maybe he did it on
Yes, I
purpose.
would. Yeah, I think so. I think he was in the newspaper. But yeah, I would like to participate and finish that race.
Bring lots of choco pies. My number 4 is Athens because I want to visit Greece and I need an excuse. And I chose Athens because it was the first city in Greece that came to my mind. That's it. My number 4, Athens.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I also looked at Greece, but did not have it in my top 10 yet, but I would like to go there. My next one is kind of similar to the previous one. I heard there was a race, said something like run across Taiwan. And so I was trying to
Mm,
find that specific one, but I found a
it's
different
around
one
Taiwan.
while I was looking. Great. And I didn't find all the way around, but this
No,
one I found was the challenge across Taiwan,
that's
which
even
I guess
worse
is
because
just
the
a,
middle is all mountains. At least the people
yes,
around it's
and
flat.
yeah, and it's not really across, it's actually north to south only through the mountains, from what it looked like.
Oh, okay. Just go around.
So I think, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be easier. Last year seemed to be the first time they did it. It said the first challenge across Taiwan,
Mm.
unless there's a second challenge, which is
The first
swim
and last
across.
challenge across Taiwan.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one it was 727.7 kilometers with 16,718 meters of elevation gained throughout. And last year, I believe this was the amount of runners who finished. There were 12 runners. So not a very big race. Definitely a lot of time
Mm.
alone thinking, why did I do this? Why did I sign up for this? But it
Did
would be
all of them
nice to try.
finish?
I believe those 12 finished.
Mm.
I couldn't find a lot of official results. It only posted the winner's time, which was like 100 hours, more than 100 hours. So,
The
yeah.
strange thing about this one was only 12 participated, but 13 finished because it took so long that one had a baby along the way.
Yeah, I can see that. That would be a great movie.
Anyway, next one is Rome. Same thing. I want to go to Italy, run a marathon, and see Italian architecture, eat some Italian food.
Delicious.
That's it.
Yeah. My next one, I searched for Mongolia because I had no particular runs
Hmm.
anywhere in Mongolia I would love to run. I found one called the Gobi March, which used to be held in
Hmm.
China but now is in Mongolia. It's part of something
Hmm.
terrifying that I found as well called the Four Deserts Ultramarathon Series, which if I was a lot healthier and fitter and richer than I am now, basically four desert ultramarathons that are 250 kilometers each and minimal assistance, one in Mongolia, Namibia, Chile, and Antarctica. And if you do all four in a
Hmm.
year, you are a legend. So that would be on my list, specifically Mongolia, but maybe the rest if I get excited.
I've actually looked at that one. I don't know if it's the same one. I've done the Ulaanbaatar marathon. That's a
Oh,
pretty easy one because you can just go to the city. It's right in the city. You do 4 laps around it, and yeah, the conditions are pretty easy to run in. The one that I looked at that was going across the Gobi also looked pretty expensive because you're paying for your accommodation along the way. Like they have the trackers are dudes on horses
oh,
because what else? And they bring yurts with them along the way. So at the end of each day, you'd sleep in a yurt and then continue the next day. Also, if you need medical care or whatever, then they have horses that can take you to the aid station or the camp for the night or whatever. And one reason why it's expensive is that they have like a non-running tour before it that's optional. So you can spend a week doing an actual guided tour and then do the week-long running tour. I think it's 250 kilometers. Yeah. But it was like 4,000 US dollars or something for the whole package. Yeah. But if you just want to do the running part, then it's probably less than half of that, which is still pretty expensive. But yeah, Ulaanbaatar Marathon was $30.
So I'll start with that one.
My next one is Iceland, because Iceland seems cool, and a lot of people that I know are interested in going to it, but it's just really far. So most people haven't been there, and it's just kind of a neat country, and you can use running a marathon as an excuse to go there. And I hear they have volcanoes.
Yeah. Are they ice volcanoes?
Oh yeah, of course. What else?
Oh,
They shoot ice.
so can you destroy a ring in an ice volcano?
Only if it's a fire-based ring.
Gotcha. Okay. So the Fire Nation attacks, I know where to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, two more.
And yes, my next one is this is another specific race in Vietnam. I've run a few there. This one is called Ultra Trail Cao Bang. And Cao Bang is an area in the north of Vietnam, pretty much right on the border of China. This race is.
Mm.
It seems like every year it's different. So the one that happened last year that I really wanted to do, I heard they also hosted this multi-day ultra marathon during the rainy season, which is like lots of rain, very dangerous, and they had to cancel it in the middle. So I think they're changing it. This year it looks like there's only one day and it's not in the rainy season. So I don't
Mm.
know, could change again next year. But at least last year when I was interested in it, it was about 320 kilometers over 4 days. So you'd find one city or village, you'd run through the mountains to the next one, sleep there for the day, then do it again the next day, sleep there for the day, and you get to go to four different places, and or I guess five because you start and finish them. But for 4 days, just running in the mountains, northern Vietnam on the border of China, and seeing a lot of local people and enjoying the beautiful scenery, and hopefully not getting rained on
Or lost.
or lost. Yes.
That actually sounds pretty fun. You said it was 300 kilometers over 4 full days?
Great. Yeah.
That's still a lot. And
Great.
probably not spending that, whatever attempt. Okay, my number two, I actually have a reason for this one that's specific. It's Istanbul. And Istanbul is significant for lots of reasons, but one is that it's right on the border. The whole country of Turkey is unique in that it's on the border of two continents, so you consider it part of Europe or part of Asia. It's both. And then in Istanbul, there are not one, not two, but three bridges that gap the two continents. So the Istanbul Marathon is one of the few races that goes from one continent to another. And that's the reason why I want to do that one. Of course, I could just go there and run on my own and run from one continent to another, but it's more fun if you do it as a race.
I I understand that. I agree. I would like to go and recreate that beautiful scene from A Walk to Remember, where they're in two places at the same time. But maybe I shouldn't mention that out loud. And my next one is the first one on my list. Actually, the only one on my list that's not in Asia, because I guess the ones in Asia are a lot closer to me. They seem more realistic, like I could go. But it's called the Quadrathon Challenge. Quadrathon.
Quadrathon.
4
I think
days quadrathon.
triathlon. Yeah, triathlon.
I guess yeah, quadrathon, and it's not a workout for your quads. This is one in Ireland in Donegal, which I had to practice a few times before watching this. Um, and this is another ridiculous, I guess, multiple day thing. This is 4 full marathons in four days in a beautiful area in Ireland, and I've never been to Ireland, but I guess I have ancestry from Ireland. I've always been curious about it. When I was a child, my favorite board game was called Discovering Ireland, where you just have to memorize like the names of every city in Ireland. And I didn't know anything about them, but I could name almost every single city. So, haha. So I thought, why not go there and run for 4 days? So,
It'll
yes,
come in handy
Ireland,
someday.
anywhere. Yeah, and yeah, especially the Quadrathon Challenge in Donegal.
Cool. Yeah, 4 marathons in 4 days is nothing for you. And to top off my boring list, at number one is the most boring marathon of all, the Boring Marathon.
I'm not
Oh, you
sure.
want me to explain?
Is there a city called Boring?
there's a town somewhere in the US called Boring. So of course
Ah,
they decided to make a marathon and call it the Boring Marathon. And it's the
right.
only reason why they had the marathon, of course. So you can choose from the Boring Marathon, which is the full marathon, the super boring half marathon, or the ultra boring 10K.
Wow, that's an easy ultra marathon.
It has ultra in the name. And of all the different, there's lots in the US, by the way. And compared to like the New York Marathon or the Chicago Marathon and all the famous ones, this one intrigues me a lot more,
Mhm.
just because I can tell people that I did the boring marathon.
Yeah, there's definitely follow-up questions whenever you say that. So I think that's a good one to mention.
I don't even know where it is. It's in like Ohio or Iowa or something. Doesn't matter.
Somewhere boring.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a boring place. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we made it through our marathon of places that we want to run in. And other than Pyongyang, I think I'll get to all mine eventually.
as for me, I think Pyongyang is about as likely as the Four Deserts Ultramarathon series. So other than those two, I think I'll try and get the rest in there one day.
Wish us good luck.